All right, all right. What up, what up, what up? What's up, guys? What's up? Happy Sunday, happy Sunday. So I thought I'd jump on here and do a Q&A slash review session. Um, we're back with the Q&As, and we're also back with the Q&As for the students, of course, more importantly. But today we decided to jump on and have a good old-fashioned Q&A for the sake of the community, right? For the sake of the team. And in this one, I'm going to also be talking a little. It'll also be a bit of a study session too. I'll answer questions, and then I'll also talk a little bit about what I'm going to try and do a little differently coming into this week here to have a better result. All right. Results, the name of the game. So, yeah, let's jump into it. You guys can feel free to leave any question, all questions. I'll try my best to answer everything. Even if you want to know my height, I'll even answer that too. All right. So yeah, let's jump into it. Let's jump into it like some QuickBooks. Okay, looks good, looks good, looks good. I think what I'll do here in the chat room too is to create another lane. That way I can have people jump in. So for all of you in the chat, you guys can leave your questions in the Q&A section. I'll post a quick screenshot here, and I'll respond to those questions first. But we'll jump in with YouTube to kick things off. So I'll post this in the day trade chat. You guys can respond right in here for all the MMU students. So as you guys know, this has been a bit more of a tricky year for me, and I'm not quite happy with where I am. At the beginning of this year, I thought for sure I was going to make anywhere over like $500,000 to maybe, $1 million, somewhere there. I thought it was going to be the sweet spot, but it's been quite the slow year here for me. Let me check out the channel here. Let's see. Let's get those questions. Are they coming in? Every Sunday live stream. Perhaps. We'll definitely be doing them. I don't know if we'll go live on YouTube every time, but we'll definitely be doing them every Sunday here. So my results in pre-market, yeah, this is something interesting to look into. I think honestly, pre-market is there's definitely opportunity there, and I think more recently we're seeing a little bit more consistency. The open has been miserable for me. Of course, I'm still green at the open, but the open has been terrible. I think pre-market has been there's a learning curve, but I think as of recent, and I think as we continue to go throughout the year, I'll see more and more gains there. But yeah, the results are still not where they need to be in pre-market for sure. A lot of days, I think like Friday, for example, undercapitalizing, not using size, things like that. We have to get into a rhythm where every time we're supposed to make money, like a high level amount of money, we do. And on the days where, it's slower, we keep to that starter size, we keep things tight, will be the way to go. We'll get into the metrics here in a sec. Let's just see what the people are saying. What do you think has changed about the market these past few months? For me personally, I think the biggest difference has been the follow through at the open. Normally, or let's say typically last year, we'd have a lot more stocks that will give a move similar to the move that it gave in pre-market. And so, CYN is a good example of this. This is one of the stocks that actually held up and kept going the first day. This last year, we saw this almost, I'd say like 96% of days. And one of the biggest issues I've always had with trading, even from the start, despite even the years of experience, has been being able to flip the switch, right? So when the market goes from cold to hot or from hot to cold and, in between, I've always had issues adapting quickly. And so when we're seeing a very consistent market, so last year, a stock would be strong in pre-market like this, give this 60, let's pull this over here a little more. We'll get this similar, move here, right? Where we go 200%, and then into the open, we'll get a 200% or maybe 100%, even 80% move still. And of course, the prices increase, meaning even if we get a little bit of a lesser percentage move, it's still significant, right? And this would happen like clockwork. So there was no need to hesitate. There was no need to second guess buying a dip. There was no need to wait for confirmation. So a lot of like the middleman, we were able to just cut out and just get straight into it, which allowed for just, more gain. And honestly, I think if we're all to go back and retrade a similar market, I think we'll all do better because we won't even hold back even with the size that we were using, we just go full power. Some stocks and some trades, it was just worth putting out more risk, looking back at it in hindsight. Yeah, so coming back to, and actually, let me just check the chat here quickly, just to make sure. Let's see if we have anything. So for those of you in the chat, AO, you guys can, again, in the MMU section, the Mighty did cover the last Q&A, so we're all caught up, but we're looking to have that consistency here every Sunday, right? So we're going to be tuning in. And by the way, let me share my screen here for those of you tuning in. And there we go. I'll only be using one screen today. Yeah, so pre-market, I think over time, we're going to start to do a little bit better. So if we break this down, let's see, I want to get by every 15, I think we can see, 15 minutes. The stats have been, small sample because we've been using such smaller size compared to what we would normally use at the open. But, there's definitely some things to consider here. Let's put the time back. I think let's go back. Year to date. I think we can go back just 3 months because I think about 3 months ago is when we really started trading pre-market a little bit more seriously. We weren't really trading pre-market aggressively before the last couple of months. So let's come down to the last 15 minutes here rather. Okay. So here we go. This is the stats. So of course, my metrics, even in the last couple of months, you can see it's been absolutely diabolical here, right? Terrible metrics. We haven't had the best year here, as mentioned. We haven't had the best quarter, the best month. So, we started pre-market looking to see what opportunities are there and how well we could potentially capitalize on the momentum, if any. And so what we've learned and what we found out is that there's been a platter of momentum, a plethora, right? Is that the word? There's been an abundance of momentum in pre-market. But the key is, this is what I found out. The key is 7 a.m. as, all the big platforms go live, whether Thinkorswim, E-Trade, whoever else, all the other brokers that are like more retail, not like the super direct access routing. The volume comes in at 7 a.m. So if you're trading before then, there might still be good opportunities, and sometimes we'll see good charts, but after 7 is when you're going to get that big volume. And I believe the sweet spot is between 7 and 7:30. And typically around the hour marks, we're going to see volume spikes. So let's do, what's this thing called? Okay. Let's pull this up. I think over the next 2 months, I'm going to be able to increase my pre-market profits substantially. So I'm green here to start 7. By 7, was it 7:30? 7:45, 7:30, and then we see a little bit more chop. And so this has been over the course of like the last 3 months. We've, sized up a little bit too much in some areas. There've been some hotkey errors. I think a lot of this is like working out the kinks. And so if we try to hover over it, let's see, 2.1, 9, and then 189 by then 2000 here for 9 a.m. Oh, slightly before 9 a.m. Come 8:50, coming into 9. And so we're red 1.3 at 8:15 or 8:30, is it? I don't know why my eyes here can't lie. Okay, 8:30. And then 1.1 at 8, and then $900 loss as well for 8:15. So at the hour is where the volume is coming in. And what I've noticed for myself is that on the best stocks, the best opportunities, I haven't yet sized up early enough in the move. And so I think the losses that came throughout the time of, some share size stuff, some mistakes, some inconsistency and chop, because in pre-market, a big thing is also pump and dump. A stock will go up and then immediately reverse. And so if you're buying that first like 1 minute pullback, there is no bounce, right? It's just kind of going down and you take the loss. So we've had issues. There've been days where we've, hit max loss very early because a stock looked good and we kind of broke our rule to go in with starter size first. And the first pullback ended up just going down without giving that recovery. So I think over the next month or two, we'll get a better sample size in terms of what it really looks like. But that will come with me being aggressive on the stocks that I need to be aggressive on. So the losses, I think, are fine. But what's not being reflected accurately is how big green we can be by sizing up properly on the moves that are strong, right? I think, so I said for Friday, and if we can go back to Friday's momentum here, we'll go back to Friday. And I'll show you guys a little bit of how that day went, calendar. Let's pull up Friday. So this week ended up being a red week, which was really disappointing because I started off with 2,200 in the gains and then had the big red day on Tuesday, getting cooked, sizing up, right? So anyhow, Friday. So someone asked me at 9, no, not at 9, at like 7:09, 7:10. They're like, RT, you're up 1,200 or $1,000, something like that. Should you be walking? Do you think it's a good time to walk away? It's a genuine question. And I was like, you know what? This is the ideal time to walk away, but today I'm not going to walk away. And not out of like spite or like looking to force things or anything, but there is this thing for me where it is, being a streamer, it is a little tough. There's a couple factors. We'll go through all of them. Being a streamer, it's a little tough to like walk away in the first 10 minutes of the day in terms of like the audience. Not, it's like there's an obligation to kind of stream at least for like an hour, right? And maybe what I could do is like trade the first couple of minutes when I am green. On those days I can maybe size down completely and just hang out, just talk. But historically, and not historically as in the last like 4 months, but historically as in like the last couple of years, on any day that I would start up 500 or 1,000 right away, it's a day where I'm ending the day like 3,000-4,000 in the green, right? So there is a little bit of that too. And it's like, can I look to build onto this day? And can I use small size to build, slowly, right? But what's been happening is chop. Friday, I complained about how trading every side stock that came after the first stock in BBLG resulted into a loss. And, it might have been $50, $20, $10 with the small size, whatever. But it still nevertheless resulted into a loss. And so, that's a bit of a problem, right? There is no reason, even if a stock is like Christmas treeing, it almost seems impossible to be red on every one of those stocks every single time, there needs to be some sort of a balance there. So even with the small size, you can see the day has kind of been going down, down, down. KYCA comes along, we make $400 on that stock, and then immediately lose it after like 3 more trades. And I think right here is like the mark where if I didn't walk away like in this level here, I think this is the mark where I have to say we're ending the day right here in this like $800 range. So there's some things to work on in terms of being a live streamer and wanting to stream a little longer. And then the big historic data telling me, because if I'm to refresh here, you guys will see like I usually would keep making money, but that has not been the case as of the last 4 or 5 months. In fact, as of this year, really, right? The open has been so tricky, right? So for you to come back to detailed and like look over the metrics here in terms of day and time, like, you know, historically we're making money throughout 9:30 and like every time frame really. We do have a small loss here at 1 p.m. Which is, even that is kind of crazy, but yeah. So, you know, sticking around versus not sticking around, walking away, the old saying, right? You'll even hear guys, you know, like Ross, some of the other big trading gurus will say, if you stick around, there's only two things that will really happen. You can either make more or you can lose money. It is rare, and you know, maybe third, but it's rare that you'll stay sideways. So historically, and like throughout the entirety of our career, we've made money by sticking around, you know, 1 p.m., 12, power hour. But as of recent, if we're to pull up this year, let's see, year to date, we've lost money by sticking around, which is, you know, again, a testament to how tricky the open has been here for me. So let's come down to 15 minutes. You can see much more inconsistency here, like 10:45, like being red after 9:30 before this year is like, it was impossible basically. And now, again, a lot of this is that follow through. You can see, you know, days where I come back and like, okay, you know, we had a small scratch day. You come back and then there's like red trades, not really seeing that follow through. SREV, I think, was a good stock to remind me of that, right? And this thing, it's so crazy because the stock went up. For those of you who on Friday kept going after the first hour, I think SVRE, let's see, I can find the name here. Let's come back to the calendar. That stock was the stock that we would like come back. So there's a lot of days last year where I'd be like flat on the day sometimes, and then I'll make a recap up 3K, right? And it's like, wait, wasn't this guy just like, you know, only up 200 or maybe even red on the day? SVRE. Let's just click on this stock right here, right? This thing, look at how much this thing moved. Like, it is insane that. So the price action is definitely not as clean, right? Look at this push here. The volume came in around 10. Okay, so yeah, right. Okay, this was before the first hour was done actually. So at 10:06, this thing just started ripping up. Volume started coming in, low of 280, pushes up to 370. There's a red candle in there for a good pullback right here. And then still, I found it near this. Normally, this right here, I'm gonna make like a couple thousand, like up until we get to this chop. Maybe you have a haircut right here. Maybe you have a haircut, and then you might say, okay, maybe that's it. If not, maybe you take a loss somewhere here, and then you're like, okay, that's it for sure. You walk away. I found it near impossible to make money on this stock, and this is ideally what I would want to see. So it lets me know like there's some sort of problem. Like, and from what I'm seeing, the price action is not what it would normally be, right? So let me double check the chat here. So there's a question for AO risk management. Where's the line between breakout/bailout or giving the trade time and not taking a huge loss? Yeah, that's a good question here. We can tie it into with this same stock that we're looking at. So typically when hyper scalping, a breakout trade is usually a quick trade. It's a trade that we don't want to be in for long because we're buying the high. if it's not immediately working out. And so, our normal hold time is about 5 to, let's say, 20, 25 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, sometimes depending on the trade and the type of breakout, how tight the spreads are. You know, there are other factors in terms of big bids, things like that. But if there's whether it's a 1 minute candle to make a new high or a bit of a flat top breakout. So let's look at this area right here, right? If we're looking to take a trade like this, and this is where maybe sometimes the time aspect also can really influence the trade, right? Because we can be out too quickly in some circumstances, and that's part of the game sometimes. But ideally, we want to be in, and our risks being very tight. Sometimes I can even have break-even stops and/or stops at the low of the last candle. It all depends on how big the range is, but normally the best trades are working out right away. So if I'm taking the high of day setup right here, it looks like this might have aligned with break of 294. I want to try to be in here as volume is coming in, high 80s, low 90s, looking for that break of 3. And what is our reward on this type of trade, right? Historically, we'll see a stock break over the whole dollar, perhaps go to 310, 315, maybe 320. In this case, it got to 311. And so if I'm going to be in at 95 or 90, and I know we could potentially get to 310, then there's 15 or 20 cents of potential reward. If we're aiming for at least a 2-to-1, 1.5-to-1, or 3-to-1, that's where we can then determine our risk in the trade. And of course, before entering the position, of course, right? I don't want to risk 20 cents to make 20 cents. I want to risk 10 cents to make 20 cents. I want to risk 5 cents to make 15 cents in a situation like this. And I think the hold time for us can also be something to consider, because the level 2, what we've noticed, can be a little noisy on the tape. And so you could be in the trade, let's say 93, and there's like a wave of selling that comes in. Maybe we drop down to 89. In some situations, it can lead us to cutting the trade, when in actuality, we need to maybe hold through that bit of a micro dip to then get the move. And so that way we're not stopped out, right? Sometimes I can be super, super active with the tape, and I can get chopped out of the trade before the move comes. So that's something to think about too, right? In which case, maybe a hold time, instead of 10 seconds, the hold time needed to be 15 or 20 seconds in that same trade to actually capture this move to 311. And from 311, it pulled back to a low of 302 and then continued up. So sometimes those are things to consider. And for me, as I'm like rewatching film, I'm always trying to see how I can approach these breakout trades in terms of the whole time. But I've still been having some trouble, right? And a lot of that, again, is the adjustment, being that what's worked for so long has been so absolute. And then, making that change for me is the tough part, I'd say. So coming back to the YouTube side, let's just take another quick look here. I know I'm going really slow. I'm going to dial through these questions here now. Let's dial it in. Hold up. Okay. Let's come back to the top and let's go down question by question here. I'm going to take like a good 30 seconds per question, depending on the question, and then dial it through. Let's see. Blew my account again. Had many small wins, but blew my account in one trade. Have you gone through something like this? I've had a situation earlier in my career where I was in the simulator and I almost blew up my account, and a lot of it was being a little too prideful, having a little too much ego, and thinking that I was bigger and better than the market. So revenge traded, didn't size down, sized up. And a lot of it also came from me having a daily goal at the time. Since then, actually, I never have a daily goal. It's more so just trade to the best of my ability and listen to the story that the market is telling, right? So, typically when we blow up an account after small wins, it can also mean we average down. Um, we just spoke a little about breakouts relative to risk management. Dips as well is also something to talk about relative to risk management. Make sure that before you get into the trade, you understand what you're risking and how much you're trying to make. That way, you already have a good game plan for each trade you're taking. Sometimes we can just buy and not think about it, and we can find ourselves in a predicament when the stock ends up coming down like right. And sometimes it's a great setup too, which is makes it even more tough. You're in, and then the stock is just teleported down. And if you haven't thought about your stop loss and how much you're looking to make, you could end up being like a deer in the headlights, and like you're stuck in the trade, not sure of what to do. You might say it's a bullish chart, so I'll give it more time, and then it still maybe ends up being like backside, right? So be careful of averaging down, and be careful of not having a stop in the trade. No, not. So 600,000 is all time. This year's been a little slower. Last year we did 300 something. The year before 175. This year only about 50,000 so far. Let's see. Do you remember DRUG and TNON? Yes, I do. Let's come back to dashboard. I can show you guys quickly here before the next question. My equity curve. Let's see. I think it's in detail, and then one thing about me that I'll say though, for me, I have no ounce of like shame or embarrassment, or like like some people, not everyone is comfortable with like the red days or like the red streak or like a tough time. For me, like my whole life has been a little bit tough, bro. So this is just a normal day for me, right? So it's all about getting better. There's no hiding, running. There's no being scared. It's just how well can we get better? That's just been since I've been born, that's the goal, right? Anybody who's struggling, there is no shying away from this challenge. This is what we've asked for. This is the career that we've chosen. This is even me being on YouTube here, like this is what I've chosen to do. So I think in these times is where we got to like step it up more and not like shy away from what's going on. So we got to be transparent with the people here. This has been like the majority of this year right here. I haven't lost money, but we haven't made money, and there's an opportunity cost for not making money because the calendar should be, come on, this thing. Where is the pencil? Hold up. Jeez Louise. The calendar should be going up, right? Bro, what did I just do? Okay. What? Okay, I see. There we go. Yeah, this calendar should be going up, right? It should just be going up, and it's not. So even though we haven't lost money, it hasn't been great because we want this trend to keep going, right? So we'll zoom back out and then get to the next couple of questions here. This for me is one of the most horrific stats here as well, is that we've made in our career closer to 4 million. Was it 3.4 million? Well, we've lost 2.7, right? We have to work. And, it's a little tricky. Sometimes I think for myself, maybe I need to get more education, right? Because for me, I've never had a mentor in my life, right? I've watched YouTube videos and things like this, but I've never did any like formal training for trading. It's just been what I've just figured out over the years in a combination of things that I've watched and like piecing together the puzzle to then be able to make this money, right? So a thought that I also had is, what if I seek education? What if there's something else that I could learn that I don't know now, that I'm not seeing now from my current, position and metrics? Because there's nobody who's too good to learn, right? Or learn more, let's say. That's something that I thought about. But anyhow, coming back to the next set of questions here. I'll keep going. I'm just like throwing some thoughts out there as I'm going here. What's up, Sunday? What's up? What's up? Happy Sunday. Let's see. Yeah, 7 a.m. is a big time frame. 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. Someone else is saying it's pretty good. What broker do you use, and can you execute trades using DAS? I guess that's DAS? Dash? Day trade dash or DAS? In terms of executing through DAS, DAS, you can link Charles Schwab, TD Ameritrade, Thinkorswim, to DAS, which will allow for better and more intuitive hotkeys. This is a free commission platform. The charts are pretty good. There are some scanners that comes with it too that you can set up. There's also options that you can trade through here. This is a good platform, I'd say. But when it comes to fills, it's not the fastest because there are direct routing platform, such as Guardian Trading, right? Lightspeed and others that allow you to have that faster speed through execution by paying a commission. But this is a good platform and you can connect DAS. In terms of Day Trade Dash, if you're referring to Day Trade Dash is more so of a scanning software and charting software that we cannot execute trades through as it's not a broker. Yeah, H1, I definitely was thinking about this, honestly. I never thought about using MACD, but I think I'll put it on my 10-second chart. I think it could be worth it. And indeed, to help out with backside. Typically for me, when I'm looking at what backside could be, I'm watching for areas where we reverse aggressively, where the volume is upside down. So in a situation like this on CYN, we reversed hard, but our volume coming down was a little smaller. Granted, we were halting down, so the candles didn't live through their full lifespan. But anytime where we're coming down and volume is high, and this is like a good example right here. We go up, but then coming down, our volume here a little higher. We did pull back here off this cliff, but the volume was high, but not as high as our green candle. So right here, I think this is a place where MACD could potentially help me out if it's able to show that inverse relation here and show that, hey, we're on the backside officially. Why not? For me, I never really thought about using it, but honestly, even if it could help like 0.5% in identifying the backside, that's more than worth it. And in fact, I actually was thinking about that a little earlier today. Like an hour before, I was kind of here doing some stuff, looking through. Pastor, how did it feel making your first 100,000? To be honest, it is important to celebrate the milestones. It's important to feel good as you go and be proud of your progress. But for me, I've never been, how do I want to say this? Happy. I don't want to use the word happy because I feel good. But there's this thing where I never feel completely satisfied because not that I think that there's more, but I just know that there's more, And I want to make sure that I say that this is not in comparison to anyone else, but just from me looking at myself and knowing that I could be a better version of myself. So whilst I've made money, the first 100K, 200K, and so forth, it's felt good to see that we've made some progress. And I don't know, it's this kind of thing, right, where you look at a billionaire and then you ask them, why do you keep going? Why do you think you can make more? On the outside looking in, it could seem as if it's greed. But maybe this person just continues to see new ways to be better, right? And it's this thing of just, can you beat your best lap time? Can you put better tires on your car? Can you upgrade the turbos in your car and get a better lap time? Can you put a better engine? Can you improve the strategy? Can you improve your mindset? Can you be more disciplined in your trading? And all these different questions, and I think they add up and they compound, and it makes sense, right? I think it makes sense that we could improve, but it all depends on the person, the mindset, things like that. Can you? Let's see. Okay, we might have skipped a couple of questions here. What do you think about having a negative RR? I don't know why, but my mind can't figure out what RR is. Risk to reward ratio, I'm guessing. But I've made money over the last 4 months because of a high win rate. So, okay, I think that is risk to reward ratio here for Curry. So, a negative risk to reward ratio, but you've made money over the last 4 months. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of being profitable, those are the real factors, right? How consistent are you? What's your risk to reward ratio? And then your accuracy on top of that, right? If we're to do like a little bit of math, like we can pull up Trader View here again too. If we're to do a little bit of math, if you're at a 1-to-1 ratio and you're at a 50% accuracy, you're going to be like somewhat of a break-even trader. And then if you're to increase your accuracy at that point, you'll start to see consistency, right? Even just being like 1-to-1, right? So like right here, we're at 70 to 90. This is like a 1.2, 1.3 to 1. So not quite close to the 2-to-1 that I'd want, right? And our accuracy is slightly below 50% here. So, it'll result into profitability, but you want to have, if possible, so in terms of hyper scalping, the closer to 50% or better, the closer to 50% or more, rather, the better. The closer to 50% or more, the better. So let's say you're 52. Sometimes we can see 55 even from some people. I got to ask Tim what's his. I know Marcelo is like 50. I think Marcel's like 54. Mighty's pretty good. The Mighty's pretty good. I think Tim might be like 52 or so. I don't know. I got to ask them. I know Lucas, a couple of other guys. But yeah, so typically for hyper scalping, if you're at 50% and then you're making more than how much your losing trade is, right? So $90 to 67 at 50%, you'll see that green, right? It adds up, right? Because we're taking thousands and thousands of trades. You wouldn't think this small amount here would amount to anything, but by, thousands of trades, hundreds of trades a day, we're taking like at least 100 trades a day with this strategy. So, this can then add up to that 800, 1K day, that kind of thing. So you can look to see how you can improve your risk to reward ratio. Perhaps keeping tighter stops can help out. I'd like to take another quick look at the chat room again here before we continue. Would you or Marcelo make a tutorial on how to use DAS for offsets and hotkeys in pre-market trading? Yeah, I can make an updated one. We have one already there, but I can make an updated one. Marcelo did put one out in the chat in the classes, but I can add mine and make like an updated version. Let me just make sure to write this down. We will add it. Yeah, because I got a couple of, there's nothing super fancy, let's say, but I got a couple of hotkeys there. And I can show you how to, if you don't know, I can show you how to use the wizard. That way you can build any script that you want, even if we're not using them. Like if you want to sell quarter or, so forth. Let me just write that down quickly. I'll make it today, actually. I'll do it today. And I don't want to forget the MACD to the 10-second chart. Over time, I see you cut your trades, minimal losses, like $5 to $10. I can take an entry and get out within a split second and still take a $100 loss on 10 shares. Something to think about is the range of the stock in this situation. if we have a stock like CYN, let me get rid of these lines on the screen. If we have a stock like CYN, right, the range is going to be a little higher. The risk is going to be a little higher. And so even if you're someone who's using small size in general, let's say you're using 10 shares on a $5 stock, $3 stock, that's kind of like your go-to size. You want to remember that in these situations and in this context, these stocks can be so volatile. They can also be very violent, and they can, and I like to use the word teleport because that's kind of what we sometimes see. Even in decent dips, in decent areas, if your timing is off, or even if you're just incorrect about the entry where support is, I mean, almost within like half a second, sometimes on a stock like this, you can be down $1.50. Sometimes the spreads are 60, 70, 80 cents. And when it gets up to like 30, 35, the spreads are going to be like $1.50. So if you're using market orders, which we're typically using market orders, before you even buy, you can potentially be down in the spreads $1 a share. So if you're then not super accurate about predicting the move, it can result into a very big loss very quickly. Very, very quickly. And Monday, was it Monday of this week, or I think it was Monday of last week. Monday of last week, I had a mistake where, I had a good pre-market and I thought coming into the open with just 300 shares was going to be small enough of size. I think I was green 700 pre-market, and then I came in and got obliterated. I lost $1 a share. So I didn't even anticipate and think that the stock would be dropping $1 a share. And it was about an $11 stock, right? I thought because the pre-market price action was a little smooth, we would see a little bit more consistency. Turned out to not be the case. So sizing down a little more in those situations, and also keeping in mind how much you're willing to lose on the position for the potential win. That way you're always, in line with your risk management. And it is tough because there's so many moving parts. Sometimes it's hard to remember everything, which is why it's good for us to keep trading every day and having that repetition. Studying is also a form of repetition for us. All right, we got to pick up the pace. Let's bring it back. Let's get through some more. Can you be my mentor? The answer is yes. You can watch on the YouTube live stream every day. If you want, you can also check out the chat room. If you want to have myself, Marcelo, Triad, and all the other guys here, if you want to have access to us, you can always join the chat room. You can check out the classes as well. There are some great traders in our community. We have students now who are doing really well. We have the team house members who I can't give them, I respect these guys very highly. Some insane traders there. And by extension, we know other people from just networking and making new connections. Shout out to a guy like Be the Story. We did some podcasting with him and we met up with him. He's a great guy. And through him, we met some other traders. We've met people now who've made 50 million, 60 million, 70 million in their careers, as traders, right? But not everyone is into the YouTube thing. Not everyone is into sharing their strategy or their style. A lot of people want their privacy. So even when these people come to the team houses, we're just not gonna show them, like it's just that type of thing, right? There's that respect. We don't want to cross any lines like that. But these people will share some information to us of what they're doing and their style, and it's always pretty insane. How long have you been trading? I've been trading now for about 6 years, I want to say. Starting 2019, around that time. I'm not enrolled in any classes right now. I do use Day Trade Dash, which is the scanners from Warrior Trading, the scanners and the 10-second chart. But I'm not enrolled in any classes. But I've been thinking about, furthering my education as a trader. I started officially with $27,500 in my account. I believe 27,500 or 27,000 flat, one of those two. And I didn't start at 25 exactly because I gave myself like a little bit of a buffer in case I was to have like a red day to start. I didn't fall below the PDT immediately. And to get the money, I utilized credit card arbitrage where, like I turned my credit and one of my siblings' credit into cash. And then I borrowed some money as well. Um, True, like a just more of like a formal, not a formal, but let's say traditional way, like going to someone with cash and saying like, "Hey, this is my plan," and honestly, the money that you would give me would just be like a buffer in my account. I wouldn't even really trade with it. It'll just be there, so I'm over the PDT. But I'll also give you after a year, I'll give you 10% or something like that because that's what the spy was doing. So that's what I gave them. I ended up giving that person 20%, but yeah, because I kept the money for an extra year, I think. So yeah, in terms of starting, save up, do what you can. Trading, for me, I treat trading as a business, and so I thought that borrowing money for my business was not a bad idea, but we all want to consider our own personal situations, and put everything into effect and into an account because if you have family, if you have certain responsibilities, you know you have to be a little bit more careful. But for me, I was pretty confident because I was practicing in the simulator and I had a good track record of my metrics right at the time. So yeah, so learning can't hurt as long as you are careful and learning from someone who knows what they're talking about. Yeah, that's a good point right there. What do you think about using a business loan to fund my account? So I guess this ties into the last question we kind of just answered there. So yeah, you just have to think everything through. I'd say give yourself a max loss on the account. Let's say you are starting at like 30K on your account. You've proven consistency in the simulator or with small size for at least 3 months, and you're funding your account now with this business loan. Let's just say it's 30,000. Give yourself a max loss. Hey, if I lose more than 2,500, I'm gonna return this money and then practice a little more. Like don't wait until like don't lose 10,000, like 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 before you say I'm gonna cut it off here. Like have a tight stop because if you're consistent and you're doing well, you can even start small too, right? Like you don't have to just go to 5, 10, 15,000 shares, anything crazy. Like build a cushion, right? Go slow, even if it's just 500 shares, 1,000 shares, depending on the price of the stock. Like just build a couple $100, get into it because at the end of the day, time is on our side, right? There's no rush. The market is going to be here for 10, 20, 30, 50. We're going to be dead. The market is still going to be here every day, right? So like there's no FOMO in terms of time. You might have missed CYN. Trust me, the 1,000 more CYNs are coming, right? So there's no rush in that aspect. So just take it slow, go small first, and then as you start to get that cushion and feel good, that's where you can then accelerate it a little more without really risking you know, any of that business loan money, like for real, right? Let's see. No way, never take out a loan. It'll affect your trading ability. Again, there's different perspectives here, right? You can save up the money if possible. It all comes down to the individual, right? That's how I'll say it there, just to kind of keep it short. What do you do in your free time? I feel like I'm wasting time in after hours. We have to find ways to keep ourselves busy. And honestly, even down to this too is something good for me because we can slack off, right? Like not only myself, like some of the team house guys will talk to, and everybody will sometimes have a period where they're in like a lull, where maybe they might have found themselves binge watching a show or kind of got a little off track from what they're normally doing. So it's good to have a routine. Um, a lot of times people really forget the importance of how a good structure to your schedule can just naturally help you stay productive. So for me, I include things like eating well, going to the gym at certain times of the day. Of course, beyond trading, you know, I'm also helping out other students who are now starting out. Um, Along with Marcelo, Triad, we're doing what's that? Is the live stream fine? Check, check. Hold up. Oh, I think it might have kicked me off. Not good. Am I good? Hold up. Okay, I see what's happened. Hmm. My computer kind of having a bit of a glitch here. Hold on one sec. Okay, I think we're back. Okay, I think we're good here. And I'm losing my train of thought. Oh yeah, so how to keep busy. So yeah, for me, like honestly, if I'll be very honest, I think I think most people I think most people are like a little bit more lazy naturally, right? And not in a disrespectful way. I think I'm the same way too, right? If everybody could have $10 million transferred into their bank account and be able to take a vacation today, and I think most people would take that, right? Over having to just keep at it at their jobs or whatever, right? So being that that's the case, we kind of need to have redundancies and certain things to force us to work, because we can slack off and fall off the grind, right? So if that means having like a system, having trading peers, partners, this can be in and outside of trading, of course. It's why even sometimes so when you own your own business, even as a trader, right? Like you're your own boss. If you don't study at night, like no one is coming to tell you, hey, remember to study at night. Like typically when we're working a job and we're in the office or whatever, there's like a boss, and there's like a deadline, and that boss has a boss, and like there's a system that like keeps and forces everyone at a certain pace and at a certain level, and there's consequences. Maybe you can like lose your job if you don't hit the quota, or etc. So when you're at your own business or you're trading, you got to have certain things in place to keep you motivated, to keep you disciplined, because you can have a period where you do so well, and you can slack off, right? You got to find things to keep yourself busy and then stay cutting edge, right? So even when you're doing really well, you're still trying to find ways to improve and be better. So for us, like behind the scenes, like we've been doing a lot of like there's been a lot of things that we're doing now that people aren't seeing yet, even like in terms of like our business here, right? Like merciless markets. Like we're working on so many things now that people are not seeing yet, but they will see pretty soon, right? And we're trying to make it even better, a better experience for the students, for us, for everyone to keep grinding and being more productive. So if even if you want to, I mean, even start up a YouTube channel, right? Start up a YouTube channel and start posting recaps if you want to. You know, maybe you build an audience of like a couple of people, and then you create a study group, and or join. This is why the chat room is also pretty good, right? You can join the chat room. There's a bunch of people who like three or four of them together. They'll study together. They're like review trades. This is like outside of even myself and Marcelo, right? This is like small groups of people. They'll share their screens, review trades, go over metrics, things like that. No trading on Sunday, just a Q&A slash like review session here. Someone saying they sold their car to fund an account. Stock Titan. I'm guessing this is a okay cheaper. Okay, so I'm guessing it's a scanner. It's cheaper than Day Trade Dash. It's about $70 a month. Okay. Where do your 37,000 in fees come from? Let's come back to. So despite Thinkorswim not having commissions, there are small fees. There are some small fees, FINRA fees, SEC fees. So even at a free commission platform, it's not really completely free. There are still some small fees that we'll pay. The brokers, if you're to read those long agreements, it is in there. And also, I think in the frequently asked questions, I think there's an area where you can pull it up to see exactly what you're being charged. CYN, biggest losses, biggest areas where we could have took losses that we could potentially learn from. Good question. So we can talk about the first haul down, which I think would have been a little bit more tough for anyone if they'd gotten caught in here. Let's pull it up on E-Trade actually. E-Trade, you can see better the halt levels. Let's pull it up in the 1 minute. Yeah, E-Trade has these dotted lines, which makes the halt level a little bit more clear versus the other charts. So in terms of losses, let's even bring it back to a bit of pre-market, right? If you're trading the open, okay, you might have just shown up here, but in pre-market, we can see this thing went from $5 and trended up slowly. I mean, some nice chart patterns here too, stair stepping up. You know, we got all the way up to 11, then 12, and then closer to 9 a.m. We gained some more volume, 8:50, 9 a.m. and got up to 13 and then 15. And so typically when a stock is holding close to the pre-market highs and it's pretty active, close to 930, we're typically going to anticipate, you know, this opening surge trade here where we break over the pre-market highs and continue. And so break of 1680, but this was really fast. I remember this being at the speed of light. This thing pushed up and halted up. And then we halted up for 10 minutes. And for me, I love to watch for this potential dip and rip. And so the key always, the best dip and rips, in my opinion, occur when the stock resumes higher than our halted price. So we got halted at this yellow line and we opened all the way up here. So why do we call it a dip and rip? Because we're gapping up, right? We're technically gapping higher. So if we look at the price here from 1794, we opened at 1955. And so will there be a pullback in here? If so, I want to try and watch for the dip in this range. And it all depends, right? This one dipped perfectly into the previous halt level, which is ideal. That's ideal. And I actually bottom ticked this entry. I had a really small size, but I bottom ticked, and I think I sold up at like 19 something. And then I didn't expect it to go the rest of the way, and it did. But this dip and rip, you got to be careful, because even if sometimes when stocks resume, they can resume lower, sideways, or in this case, higher. If they resume sideways, I want to see a spike and then a dip before it continues. And if it opens up lower, sometimes I'll watch for the high of day. So if we open up down here, I want to be in, you know, somewhere here for the highs as the stock keeps going. In terms of losses you could have took here for hyper scalping, it's sometimes insta buying or mistiming this trade and maybe being in here when our low is actually still coming all the way down here. In which case you bought and then you're selling where you should have been buying. And those are always the toughest ones, you know. Other than that, if you're holding into this halt up, I'd assume you're not buying right here, but instead you're holding from a lower average, maybe pre-market, maybe somewhere else. So typically this instantly halted down right here, right? I think it resumed and just like within a millisecond, like it just dropped instantly. There's not much you can do here, assuming you're holding a position from earlier. But if you bought up here, it is just too risky buying into the halt up at this, at this level. If that's the case, on the resumption here, if you're in with a lower cost, even if you bought here and it's, now you're ready to trade, I still think the best thing to do is cut the position and then try to move on from there, looking for the next best couple of entries. Other than that, there was an offering that came on this stock, being, of course, we were pretty extended at this point. We got all the way up to 40. Something we can all do is check for offerings. I don't do it as much as I used to. Typically, if you're holding longer, I think it's something you should be more aware of, because we're in and out so quickly most of the times. It's not as much of a risk to us. But if your strategy requires you to hold for a few minutes at a time, or if you're holding into halts going up, or maybe even a halt going down, if you're in pretty low and you're still giving it a chance, maybe it's not hit your trailing stop yet, you got to be careful with secondary offerings and shelf registrations. There are a few websites that I used to use. I'm trying to remember the name. If you guys have any, you can post the links in the chat room. I'm not sure if the YouTube stream will allow you guys to post links. Man, there's the guys in the chat would use two of them. This is how you know it's been long since I actually checked for a secondary offering. Man, my mind is going completely blank. There's like 3 of them, 4 of them. Floating orders. We'll talk about floating orders next. There are I think you guys can look it up. Maybe Google search will probably get you to a good website where you can check for secondary offerings. Was it BAM SEC? I think BAM SEC might have been one of them. If that's going to pop into my mind, it has to have been one of them. Let's see. Yeah, I think, BAM SEC. Damn, it's been so long. Yeah, BAM SEC is one of those websites that you can use. I'll post it in the chat and in the stream here. Dilution tracker. Yeah, there's another one. Yeah, someone else also saying BAM. Yeah, dilution tracker, BAM SEC. So in terms of floating orders on Thinkorswim, what I've been told by customer service multiple times is that there are sometimes signal issues between Schwab and their market makers, the people in charge of matching orders and routing the orders. There can sometimes be signal issues, which then results into lag, let's say. And on our side, it's essentially, hitting the buy button and seeing shares and the order just being out and nothing happening. When this platform first went to free commissions, and then even the months following that, kid you guys not, I'd buy 3,000 shares and the order would sit there for 30 minutes. So you can only imagine, being that we're in and out within 5 to 15 seconds, how dangerous and terrible this was. And at that time, they were reimbursing customers because it was more so their fault. They couldn't handle all the volume from the extra people signing up from free commissions and the amount of trades that were going through. The system couldn't keep up, and so they had to update their backends. But every now and again, it'll still happen from time to time. And when it does, the key is to not panic, but also instead to keep receipts and to stay calm, to manage. If you're recording your screen, you'll always have evidence of where you were buying, even if it's not at an exact price point, at least plus or minus a couple cents. That way you can always go to them and say, hey, I'd love to be reimbursed. And what I find is that typically when it's something egregious that's on their side, they'll credit your account. I've only had to do this maybe twice throughout the time. I think one time was like 1,100, the other time was like 800, where it was like really bad, and it's like I'm not just gonna take. Sometimes, like we're doing really well. I mean, there's been days where it's happened. And it's like I didn't really care to do it, like to call them and where I lost like 400. But back in these days, you're ending the day 2-3K in the green, and it's like, okay, I lost 400 because of that lag, whatever, right? Now that things are so slow for me, if I buy right here and then I lose $1,000, $400, I'm gonna say no, I'm calling them right away, right? So, but that's the explanation for floating orders. But when it happens, don't panic. Stay cool, calm. If you need to call the broker as well, you can, and then take it from there. So we'll look to wrap it up here in the next 5-10 minutes. And we can talk a little bit towards the end about, what we're looking to do a little differently here, especially in terms of walking away early if we're to hit our gains, our goal in pre-market. And whilst I don't have a number per se, just getting fairly green, a couple $100, 500, 800, 1,000, whatever it might be. Because what I've noticed we've been doing a good job of is keeping it tight in the last 2 weeks after really getting everything dialed in with our hotkeys and getting past some of the learning curve issues. We've been keeping our losses tight for the most part, especially now in relation to sub $1 stocks. I've reduced my base hotkey. I'm trading them a little less. And the goal is to really and truly catch something uptrending. There's been a couple. BBLG, INM. So this stock, I'm telling you guys, man, in this move, let me pull up the log here. What was this, Friday? Let's pull up the log. Let me show you guys how I started pre-market, right? Did I put the right date in there? 20. Let's do 27 rather. Here we go. Okay. This is how I started the day. BBLG. Look at my, and this is fine right here. I have to start small on the first at least two to three trades to protect myself in case it's a Christmas tree setup. Because we've seen a lot of these stocks like BBLG start off nicely like this, and then the next candle we're back down. Let's get all the time frames here in line so everything makes more sense. Let's also clear the drawing set. Get rid of all these trend lines. Doesn't look so good on the daily chart now after selling off like that. But anyhow, yeah, so the key was that I needed to take a little bit more size a little sooner. I start off by getting in at 7. So just compare this to me trading in the open, where it's so difficult to even make a 50-cent trade, $1 a share trade. Like last year now during the open, we're seeing this during the open all day long. After 9:30, we're seeing this all day long, right? In terms of how smooth it is to capture $1 a share. Even on stocks like CYN, where it's at $18, I'm finding it a little bit more challenging with the price action to capture this many cents. But here I am in pre-market, $1 a share to start. We had a small loss here of just 15 cents relative to this move here, not bad. And then now we're in at 807. This is where, I think after this trade, is where I needed to bring out my big size, right? And this is where you can really get up there very quickly and have a good day. So Monday, tomorrow, I got to be ready if a stock is strong to size up right away. I'm then in at 807, out at 876. Massive trade. I'm in at 876, out at 920. I'm in at 874, out at 950. This, and look at my size. Bro, what? Why? How long was that out for? Bro, this is drive me mad, bro. Too long? 3 minutes? Oh man. That should never happen. It just happened randomly. I'm not sure what caused that. That never happened before. Anyhow, so I think I might have to restart the. Jeez. Okay, I'm gonna restart here, getting into BBLG and how I need to be a little bit better for pre-market in terms of sizing up quicker on a hotter stock, so that I can see a little bit more separation in between my stronger green days when a stock is good versus a typical green day and also a typical red day when nothing is really working. That's the topic here as we're going forward. Do apologize for the technical difficulties there. So coming back to ticker symbol BBLG, I'm going to show you guys how many cents I made to start the move and why share size early would have really helped me out. And the biggest issue that I had was assuming that the stock would not continue to be strong and carrying too much baggage from prior days into the new day, when instead I should have just kept to being reactive and reading the story the market is telling me, which in that time was to, hey, RT, the stock is strong, use size, and then once we get to backside, ease off. So coming back to it, BBLG started off around 7 a.m. My first trade with my baby starter size, which is the right trade in my opinion in terms of the size. I'm in at $7 and I'm out at 8.13. During the open right now, even on stocks like CYN, I'm finding it much more challenging to make this many cents. And so in terms of the scalps that I like to see, you know, this is kind of fitting that description, right? Like 5 second trades, 10 second trades or less, and seeing quick moves. And so in at 7, out at 813, in at 827, out at 815, small loss, not bad. Back in at 807, out at 876. In at 876, out at 921. But I think right here, because we had such a massive move already, I think after this trade here, I think this trade was the real confirmation trade. This second one, in at 8, off the whole dollar area, and then back out. I think this is the real confirmation trade. In this moment is where I have to accept and understand what's happening, which is that the stock is being extremely strong and there's no more time to waste, right? Because the starter size is really to protect me in case it's just Christmas tree up and down. This is where I can differentiate between, and in terms of my performance, right? What a hot day in pre-market looks like versus a normal day versus a small red day versus a choppy day. The next entry, we're in at 876 and out at 920. This trade is another solid trade. 25 cents to the whole dollar and another 20 cents on the other side. So essentially, 45, 50-cent trade here. And this trade should have already been with size. And so, coming into the next couple of entries, we do take a loss here. Well, was this? Oh, no, never mind. This is a win. So in at 875 again. And then look at this, man. So again, this is where, and my size went down right here. In this moment, before this trade, I thought to myself, the stock has did so well, there's no way it's going to keep going up. But I cannot read the future, and why be so unfair to myself and the stock? This is the stock market where opportunities can be irrational. In fact, just a week and a half ago, a stock went from 5 to 40, or was it 30? Why would I think that this strong stock couldn't go up more? And so it almost felt that, man, I didn't size up early and this thing's just not going to keep going. But it was such an unfair thing to do to myself and the stock. Read the story the market is giving and be reactive is my job. Not to guess the future of what I think the stock did and what, because at the time we're still pretty bullish in the chart. We're still looking good. So this is just 702, which is now into this second green candle here, right? There have been stocks like this that's given 5 of these green candles up to 20 before the pullback. And not saying that this is going to be that same move, but at least treat it with that respect until it proves otherwise. And so, with just these trades here, honestly, like you're hitting the daily goal if you're putting out any sort of size, because they're such massive winners. In at 875, out at 950. In at 39, out at 44. It's just a smaller win. And I think this is where we can start to see like the winners getting smaller. And in the moment, it'll be a good time to maybe ease down and starting to like slice back down a little bit. All right. We then got back in at 929. And then we're out at 970. Like, how big are these winners, right? This is like another 40-cent trade. So if we were to size up after our third trade, and which was this dip at 8, which I think was a real confirmation trade, we could have then captured opportunities in this range right here. My big size is 3,500 shares. If we're to do the math, 50 cents, or even with 2,000 shares is another hotkey that I have. Even if I didn't go up to the full size and kept it 2,000 shares, we could have been walking away with like 3K plus, in the move. And so if we're to scroll up a little more, but that's going to be the difference, because by the end of this, I'm up like 800 or something, and it's just looking like if it was like a normal day, when in fact it should have been up 5,000 or something. Because just, and just for context, right? If I'm to have these same winners here at any point in time last year after the open, I'm up like 15,000 on a day. It's not even a question at that point. I'm up at least 5, 10, 50, like something crazy, because I would have had sides in every single one of these trades, right? I mean, the winners are just so massive. Let's see where we had like our first loss, like a smaller win here. I mean, it just keeps going. 1030 to 1080. Like this is insanity, right? So this should have been like a massive green day here to start the day, like in the first couple of minutes. Okay, this is like the first loss coming in. Did we take a bigger loss? 1105 to 1090. We did have a small win at 70 to 98. But you can see, like, I think like right here is where it might have started slowing down. We still had some smaller winners, 50 to 67. And I think these are the trades where we then, okay, we made the money, size back down, like protect the gains, and, like tread lightly. And then once this stock is done, that's it. But we can't afford, and this happened to me, like INM, BBG, I mean, I can't, like REBN, I think. Like there's just so many of them, at least like a good 6 that came in the last like 3 to 4 weeks where I didn't size up. And so, we have to do the right thing, which is to be a little bit more aggressive and take these trades. I mean, we're still seeing some small winners here. And then here's another loss. Okay, there's like a loss. And even this is not like a massive loss. In at 1108 out of 1090. Okay, and this is another one in at 55, 58 out of 42. And this is where you got to say, okay, time to ease off, right? Because then we're having multiple losses in here in a row, 28 to 19. And then also, right, right here is the perfect place to say that's it, right? Took a couple of smaller losses, and especially if you're sizing down, we should be sizing down after massive winners like that. That's the day, and then you're walking away, right? So I think on looking back, anything like after here, at this rate is overtrading. Any of this, even if there's a winner in here, overtrading. Small winner, like still overtrading. Small winner, like all of this, I still would consider overtrading. Like the shear size needs to be dropped down to a point where once we're up that couple thousand, there's no way in hell we're giving back anything for like a real. Like if we're up 3,800 and we lost 200 off the top, okay, or $100 or something, right? But that should be the day. The day is done in 24 minutes, and then to hell with anything else, because we did so well so quickly, Now, granted, if it's a slow day, nothing is happening, we're waiting for 8 a.m. at the next hour or 9 a.m. at the next hour. And then because the open has been so tough, if I'm not seeing anything, gotta just continue to size down and be patient and wait, right? Again, historically, as in all time, we've made a lot of money after 9:30. It's still somewhat our bread and butter, but as of the current market conditions, the current last 3 months, last 6 months, we got to be extremely careful at the open, and sometimes, honestly, not even trade it if we're already where we need to be, right? If we want to hang out with the audience, I think that's the way to do it. I got to just go to one share and literally just hang out for hanging out's sake, and maybe a couple of call outs, and that's it. And I it's tough because if I leave at 7:25 a.m., then I'm not here for a few hours. Maybe what I'll have to do is get Marcelo to stream maybe on those days, like starting at maybe like 9:30 a.m. or maybe like a little before 9 a.m. It does feel kind of bad to leave the audience like just like nothing going on, but I think maybe that's the best move that way, because I do find it difficult to stay here and see charts, because let's look at a stock like CYN, right? optimism can definitely be a problem for me. Like I all and historically, as in before this year, I've never in the world had a reason why I should never, keep going. Right? This is like a dream here. Under normal circumstances, this is like a day to be up like insane numbers, right? But right now it has been brutal. So seeing this and watching it without trading is a hard thing for me to do because of the past. But having to accept the current metrics is the key up until we see some cleaner price action, because the price action is what's difficult. I think actually the people who rely a little bit more on the chart, I think they're probably doing well or the same or maybe even better into this year, right? If you're strictly trading the chart, I'm curious, right? For those of you who trade the chart, let me know how the year's been going for you guys, right? I'm very price action based. Like I'll look at the chart, of course, and then from there it's just straight to the level two, the time and sales, and so forth. But maybe even the people who are using smaller time frames with charts, that's such as the 10, 15 seconds, I'd assume those guys are doing, having like a good year. So to stick around, this is the only issue with sticking around, is that stocks can then look good and maybe they can even be good in terms of the move up, but then I still have trouble capitalizing, right? So I think the move is going to have to be to just walk away completely still, because the last week, I tried to reduce to 50 shares and I somehow still managed to lose more than that, like $100, $200 that I'm like, hey, I don't want to lose more than this with this small size. So, I think we'll have to move forward like that. Yeah, we're getting ready to shut it down. So just a couple last minute questions here, and then that's it. LGCY was a stock that I made some. I made 400 and then I lost it. What has been your most profitable day, month, setup? I think the question is missing something there. But yeah, this is the reality of trading though, is that, in the beginning of this year, I thought, like right now, I thought I would have made at least like 300,000, 400,000. And then getting ready to finish the year, 600K, 700K. Maybe if we get a couple of hotter months throughout the year, maybe I get closer to 1 million on the year. It's been the depths. Half the traders I know, as in like even the big traders, half of them are having like a slower year, and the other half are keeping to their normal pace. It's the strangest thing. It's the strangest thing. And what something to consider too is that everyone is coming in with various levels of education, various levels of knowledge, and also just their risk tolerance, how they perceive things. There are some people who are going to start hyper scalping who might have traded a different strategy before. Even if they weren't successful at that strategy, they might have traded something different, right? And so they can sometimes have a different perspective, and that can in turn help out a little more with hyper scalping, right? Maybe in certain trades, holding slightly long. I mean, there's some small variables that can honestly make a massive difference, right? It's the small things, the little things, really. So these are all things to consider. Maybe sometimes some of the traders are seeing and perceiving some things in a slightly different way, versus the people who haven't kept to their normal pace, let's say, right? There's a lot of things like that. We can always keep studying more. We can always keep doing more reviews. I think The biggest thing I'm seeing though is to capture that pre-market move with bigger size, with more confidence, ease off a little quicker, and leave even if I need to. Because I mean, someone generally asked the question there on Friday morning at that time, like, "Hey RT, you're green 1K plus. You know, what are you gonna do here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, shutting it down right now is the ideal thing to do." You know, but here I am still trading on that day. I was still trading till 9:30. Even with the small size, I managed to give back an insane amount of gains, which is the thing that's even more frustrating. Okay, there we go. Your most profitable chart pattern, and are you retiring? The day that I retire is the day that I die. To answer that question quickly, check, check. Oh man, hold up. The day that I retire is the day that I die. Till death do us part. Till death do us part. And I say that because even if small cap stocks are to just dry up completely, let's say tomorrow our entire chat room and in the entire community as we know it in YouTube and Twitter, nobody's making money in small caps, then there's still opportunities in the broader market, right? I mean, did you guys trade this tariff dip at all? I'm still holding shares. Like the small cap scalping is great. It's awesome. It's like no other to go through the learning curve and finally make it to the other side. I know a lot of people are still fighting to get there, but it is liberating. We had that question earlier of how did you feel making the first 100K? It is liberating. It feels good, but there are other opportunities in the broader market as you're able to make more and have more money sitting. The tariff dip, Nvidia and all these companies being down there at like $85, Tesla being down at 220 and just scaling in slowly over time and getting a good average. There are opportunities outside of small caps. I was long United Health Group or United Healthcare, the insurance company, at like 265. It got up to 340 or I think 320, right? I mean, there's opportunities for like swings, and it is guaranteed that we will keep getting opportunities in the broader market, right? And even in small caps, there's no reason that small caps would go away because this is just companies that are below, I think, like, is it like below 2 billion? Is it considered a small cap? I forget the thresholds. There's like the different categories for why a company's in terms of money and the market cap. For a large cap, mid cap, small cap, and like micro float or micro cap, something like that. And then from there it trickles down even more, right? These companies are going to keep having breaking news because at the end of the day, they're working just like we are to get better. How can we release a new product, a new service, a new medicine, right? Depending on the new technology. It might not be every single day, but most days we're going to see a stock hit the headlines, breaking news, and it's going to go up. There will be opportunities unless the stock market ceases to exist. And for that to happen, we need something beyond a depression. We need something to threaten our existence as humans, which I don't know if that'll happen anytime soon. So the market will be here, and we just got to keep getting better and keep trading. And when you make money in small caps, you know it's good to trade the other stuff too for swings when the opportunities are there. But you still have to be responsible. You still have to manage risk. You still have to have an amount you're willing to risk. And like when I was scaling in, I told myself like I don't want to go in over a certain amount of money, right? Like I was still holding bullets. So I ended up only going in like half of what I could have went in with. And I was like, okay, that's like, fair enough. So it depends on how comfortable you are too, right? In that aspect. But yeah, still take it slow, understand the news, understand what's happening in the economy, that can help with more gains outside of um of the small cap land. Mighty Putty, what's up, man? Mighty Putty, if you're listening, you know, I do like your style. Sadly, I'm not the only person in the chat room. There are other people, and you having to leave the chat room did suck a little bit. Hope you're doing well, man. I saw that you just messaged me there. I'll check it out. Let's see. Okay, the most profitable pattern. We have, if I go to the course website, right? We have the dip and rip. If I come down to chapter 14 or chapter 20, I think it was 21. If we're to actually go through all these patterns. The bull flags probably are my most profitable pattern, actually, now that I'm really thinking about it. The bull flag breakout, it also ties into sometimes a flat top breakout, also even a 3-bar play. It's all, and even sometimes a break of the whole, a lot of the patterns overlap, right? Sometimes it can be in the context of a break of the half dollar, break of the whole dollar, depending on where the bull flag is and what the expectation is for the move. My biggest trade this year, I think, came, was it a bull flag breakout or was it a bull flag breakout? Bull flag breakout. 9,000 in this one bull flag breakout trade right here. $9,000. Insane. So, the stock was doing its thing, and we had this massive pullback here, this massive range initially. And every time, I see the stocks the same way all the time when there's an uptrend, and which is why I love to trade the uptrend. After we start to go sideways, we're now into this massive consolidation. There are entry points lower, but sometimes I think it's more difficult to take, especially earlier, because as this is dropping, nobody really knows that it's going to hold up this and then bounce back quickly. However, the second time it comes down here, maybe it's a little easier to buy because there's the context that we're coming across right here, and we were in this range before. And so you could potentially, I mean, look at how quickly this came back up. I guarantee that there's somebody who bought like right here. There's somebody who bought at least right here and then sold all the way up here. Somebody had to, at least one person in this world who was trading this stock had to be in somewhere in this green candle and selling somewhere like here. Maybe they're scaled out slowly. Even some sold some here, sold some here. But these trades, I think, sometimes are a little bit more tough to take depending on the context. But anyhow, we're in this range. It holds up the low side of the range, which is why we can still make money in our range in a consolidation. And here's a miniature pullback here. And then it stair steps up in this type of manner like that. Right? We stair step up. And then this pullback here, the bull flag. And honestly, I think this is the first pattern I ever learned about. And I'm in right at the high of the flag. So this is like a breakout trade. The moment that I'm in, and I've bought like a massive position here, there are risks. Let's talk about if this trade had failed. This is the risk of trading, right? I mean, it's why we lose money. It's why we can lose money. Let's assume we had this red candle right here happen. If this red candle happens right where I'm buying right here, what would have the result been? Typically, I don't see myself losing the entirety. Let's say I bought towards the high and I'm, I don't see myself stopping out at the bottom. Usually I'm out like somewhere here. So, I mean, it depends on the speed. If it teleports, wherever it teleports to is where I'll be out, because there's no way I'll keep holding. It'll all be a big loss at that time, right? Already be big. Typically, if I'm jumping in and with this size, I think I took, let's come down, let's not guess. Let's come down here. We took how much shears? Let's get rid of this. Boom, boom, boom. Why do we have so many pages for just a one trade? Okay, 9,000 shares. I'm in 9,000 shares at around 10:17 or so in the bubble there. And man, if this teleports down 50 cents, what's half of 9? 4.5? I'd get cooked. I'd get cooked. But in the trade, what's giving you the confidence is the intuition, you know, being in rhythm, being in sync. I'm typically never going to put out size ever if I'm not in rhythm, which is why when I had the $2,200 red day on Tuesday of this week that just passed, it was a frustrating day because I already made like 50 cents on the stock, but I just had small size. And I'm still in rhythm, and here I am sizing up aggressively, and it's like my first trade now with size is actually a losing trade. And it's like, are you kidding me? Was it the size or was it just the area where I bought, It's like I spoke to Big Steve about that trade, and it's like, maybe I could have stopped out sooner. When it started to break down, it came down so quick, but the bounce wasn't immediate. And maybe that was my cue to just get out for like 2 cents winner instead of holding the trade to see if it would, go. Because I wasn't in the red, but I was like flat and it wasn't really quite bouncing. And it wasn't like a panic flush. It was more so like something like this where we had like a longer breakdown, and I'm in an area like this is a perfect example of that trade. Actually, I'm in an area like this, but then we end up having a red candle which put in a new low in an area like right here. So I'm like early on the pullback and just getting blazed with 7,000 shares. In that trade, I lost 700 or maybe like 900, maybe even 1K. So typically, and that's 7,000 shares. So typically, I'm not going to be holding the stock till it goes to zero. So 9 times 10 is, I'm in here with like $90,000 worth of cash. So in with $90,000 worth of cash, what is the risk that I lose $90,000 in this trade? Zero. There's a 0% chance that I lose 90,000 in that full amount because I'd have to keep holding this thing all the way down to $0. Why would I keep holding this down to $0? With my strategy, it wouldn't make any sense. Now, the risk to potentially lose 9K, I'd say is possible. If I could potentially lose 9K, I could potentially lose, and this would be $1 share if I'm in at 10.20 and it just teleports to 9.20. 9.20, let's just say that's like right here. If this teleports down to 9.20, then I could lose 9,000. If it drops down 50 cents, I could lose 4.5K. And, so forth and so forth. With 9,000 shares, every 10 cents is 900. Can I lose 10 cents? Can I lose 20 cents? Lose 1,800? All of that was possible in this trade. But what gave me the confidence was the setup, the volume spike right here, and, the chance to potentially see a new high of day. So we jumped in, and the bull flag is my most profitable setup over the years. But the halt resumptions might be a close second. Break of the whole dollar could be close second or close third. I don't track them specifically, but just from thinking back over the years, the half and whole dollars, man. I mean, geez Louise. This is why I'm saying, like a year like last year, I don't know why I just didn't use instead of taking 2K size, like why am I not taking 5-6K size to just start? Like this is the difference between making $1 million and 300K like I did, right? I needed to realize right away, like, bro, like this is just it's just too smooth, like compared to this nonsense we're seeing now. Like it was just so smooth, right? So pedal to the metal. You got to bring out your inner Terminator, your inner John Wick, your inner, The Rock, whoever, crazy superhero kind of person, the Terminator, Rambo, right? Whoever. You got to bring out that inner superstar and go crazy. The Dash interview will probably come in. What I'm thinking, honestly, for the next Team House, and this, I guess, is somewhat of like I don't know if I would say favoritism in a way, but maybe we bring every profitable student, and that's what will encourage them to do the interview. Like in person, being in that atmosphere, being around all the big guns, right? Maybe we fly out all of them one time to the Team House and just, hey, like, let's just do it in person. Put Marcelo in there too, and we both of us interviewed them at the same time. There's like at least, I think there's at least like another 10 people. I have to like look through the chat, but there's at least like another 10 people who are doing really, really well. There are some other people who are doing well by extension of the channel and the community. They might not have been like full-on students, but they're in our chat room every day, trading a similar style of trade to us. Shout out to those people too, because we'll share a lot. I'm pretty sure, like, especially like last year, posting the recaps every day like I did, there had to at least been a few people who became profitable, I think, from just that, because I'll show things over time. Not in every recap, but like every now and again, like there'll be enough for you to understand what the strategy is and how to trade it, just from watching every single recap every single day. So I'm honestly, this is the type of person I am. Like I feel comfortable saying that because it is what it is, and beyond me being here and like selling a course, like, bro, and I'm using the word bro because I want the audience to know that it's not that formal, right? Like, I'm not gonna stand here and lie. The moment I start doing that, you guys gotta cook me in the chat. Like, if y'all ever see me, if the day ever comes where you could tell, like I've been bought out or something, like y'all gotta cook. Like, that day would never happen anyways, but you gotta cook me. Like, you gotta destroy me in the chat. Like, I put myself on public display to be ridiculed the moment I sell out myself, So on here, I'm going to keep it real all the time, every time, good or bad, slow or hot. It's just like, if you meet me, if you're to come in, the time will come where most of you guys will meet us, right? But when you meet me, you'll just see like, yeah, this guy is not no nonsense, no trickery, no hiding, nothing. Like, just straight up. That's what it is. Just straight up here, right? But yeah, I think it's been a good talk. I think for me, the next step here before the day is done, we talked about keeping busy. There's a piece of content or two that I have to record, and then I want to make sure that I rewatch. I haven't rewatched any archives yet this weekend. I want to rewatch the archive for Friday and Thursday. And I think Tuesday we had the bigger red day, but we know what caused the red. So I don't think that there was a ton to learn from that, right? We were bigger size. We kind of were a little inaccurate with that dip. The two dips with big size, we got murdered there. I think at most we could have maybe sold a little sooner. But I want to review Friday, Thursday, and then I think it'll be a successful study session. I want to go through a little bit more of my metrics, and as we game plan towards this next week, I want to really look at my pre-market metrics after implementing the size on hotter stocks earlier. I think maybe too, like someone did say this, like, RT, maybe, like, for me, recaps, the thing is with a recap, man, is like sometimes you're there and it's just like, oh my God, like, it started to feel too like repetitive for me, Like, I had this conversation twice last year, earlier this year, like in January. and it's why I kind of stopped doing the recaps. But maybe we bring back the recaps. At the end of the day, even though it might feel repetitive for me, at the end of the day, it's just even more studying. It's even more time at looking at the charts, you know? So if we look at like a net negative versus a net positive, there's more than likely a net positive out of it, you know? So like there's other content I've been recording and things that you guys will see soon on the channel. Like there's some videos being edited right now. But the recap, maybe I start doing the recaps again tomorrow, right? Maybe I start doing the recaps again tomorrow. It's been 5 years of doing recaps. Maybe I've missed a day or two, like throughout the 5 years. But we haven't really done consistent recaps for now 2 months now or 3 months. It does feel a little weird to not do a recap. So maybe we bring the recaps back as well. H1 on that day we made the 7K. Can you imagine that that's how the stocks would move every day last year? Oh man. Why is the market doing this to us, man? Where's the sweet moves? Here, let me show you guys, you know, in comparison the calendar right now. Let me show you guys the calendar. Just a quick look at the calendar right now, and then the calendar of like last year and the year before that. So the calendar now mixed in with much more red days, bigger losses, you know, the most inconsistent year we've had in a really long time. By the way, I think this was the day we had that big trade. So eliminate this day from the year, right? Let's eliminate this day. This is how terrible the year has been here, right? Let's look at March. Bro, I can't even seeing this now, just it still doesn't even feel real. Like I've been making money so long, so consistently that it almost doesn't even feel like this is real, but it's, you know, it is. You know, like I mean, like 4,000 is just a good day, and here I am 4,000 in a month. Like this is like complete chaos and madness. Red days galore. I was red 8,000 in a month. Like how? Like there's no way. My goodness. Pastor being red on a month is crazy work, bro. Yes, I'm using the word bro. I'm kind of using a little bit of slang here because I'm keeping it real. I keep it pretty professional, but still we got to keep it a little still, you know. I don't want to be too crazy here. But yeah, just look at last year, right? 3 red days in a month to start the year, you know, month looking good. Like just a way more clean trading consistency. February, you know, you're making 70K in the month. You know, 9K day here, 10K day, a $26,000 day, 8.9 thousand in a day. This type of I will say though, like when you're making this type of money, you save money at such a rate that it's unbelievable, really, how well you can save money. So when it comes to like having like I have a bunch of accounts, right? Like traditional IRAs, Roth. I have dang, what was it called? I have to look up the name of this thing. I can't even remember what the name. Like, you know, so when you're also working with like a CPA, you'll have different things that they'll recommend you to do. You can then also have accounts for high yield savings, right? When it comes to some of these platforms giving 5%, the institutions giving 5%, 4%, even 3%, still good. And then swing trading accounts, right? Different platforms. I have different brokers, right? Different accounts, different swing accounts. That way you can set up everything properly, and go from there. So we had a really good Q1. April, I think May might have been a little slower. We did have some slower months, but for the most part, mostly consistent. This is one of the slower months of the year last year. June, decent month, raking in a little something something. July, and then August. But the gains, they add up, right? They add up, and then before you know it, it's like a pretty good year you're having, right? Some smaller green days, but it's adding up. Smaller green, smaller green, smaller green. Not the best end to this week here, but decent. And then a good end to the week here in week 5. So this is how the calendar was looking last year. Bigger loss here. This is a tough loss here. On the 25th of September. Oh man, I got destroyed. Red, oh my goodness. Got cooked. OCTO. That needs to go on the no trade list. Bro, even days like this, like you just gotta stop. Like right here. Right here. Or right here. Worst case scenario right here. Sometimes you just have to stop, like thinking that if you go more you can then make back is sometimes a death by 1,000 cuts, and then you're just losing. At least right here, keep it. Okay, you're down 1,200, 1,100. Save yourself the misery of this nonsense here. And then you're getting blazed like nobody's business. Even 2023 was also a good year. This was a smaller year for me, but this is also a year where this year I wasn't using size. If I'd used size this year, maybe it could have been even better than 2024. I think it's possible. Man, it's just crazy what size. Honestly, size, guys, do not underestimate size. Do not underestimate share size when you do start to like become profitable and you get to consistency. Like, let me see a day like this. Let's see. $2,000 shares, 1,500. Looks like some bigger size on this one. Although SAI, yeah, this was what, a $4 stock at the time. Is this the correct date? Date. I can't even tell. But anyhow, big size in these times would have been the key to having hundreds of thousands in the year. So if we come back, well, we'll shut it down right here, actually. This is where we are. Reports, month and year. Man, what a disaster. This has been our equity curve. And then this has been this year. My goal at this rate is to just make 100K plus and call it a decent year. Well, I mean, it depends, right? Honestly, size pre-market, and then, if we are to see a better price action, I'm still thinking if I want to just implement more of the charting and hold longer, but then, it becomes a little bit more than hyper scalping at that point. But if we see smooth momentum, for what I know smooth momentum to be, I could easily see myself making like 5,000-10,000 every day for the whole rest of the year, for like, even if it's just a 3-month stretch, right? And then you end the year 200K, you made something. This right here is like the depths. It's good to be green and better to be red than to be red, but again, I was thinking this year would be more at this point already like this, maybe like 400,000, and then we're looking to push over to 6, 7, 800K, maybe 1 million, right? Because I have the experience and I have the cushion of all this, I do feel pretty good. But there's still no excuse to not make money every day, right? But yeah, I think that'll do it The day I stop being transparent, the day I stop showing up, it's like even if I'm not posting a recap, I'll tell the people like if I don't show, like you'll know there's a problem if I'm not coming here to show the people like the months, like like the day I stop showing this, bro, is the day I'm not who I am. That's the day that I'm like I've lost myself or something. So just know that I'll be here always, at every turn, at every corner. Pastor will be here. Man, what a month. Started off a little slower. Big losses on these 2 days. I took some massive loss. I took three trades, got me this red, 3,700, and then another small gain, and then loss again. 1,400 here, 1,400 there, and where's the other one? 700. There might have been there might have been another one that I missed. Yeah, that'll do it to you. Losing this amount in one trade will do it to you for sure. Some of these stocks I needed to cut the losses a little quicker. And it looks like I was buying lower into this dip with too much confidence, thinking it would bounce. This is tragic, right? Look at this front side. Bro, this is where MACD can, potentially help me, right? The MACD has crossed over maybe since here. Yo, looking back at this stuff, sometimes it's like, what am I thinking in this trade? Because there's no way I should have lost here. Right? This is how you know you can be better. Like, there's no reason I should have been this aggressive. What gave me the confidence to be that aggressive in this trade, thinking it would bounce? Bro, the moment this thing doesn't hold up, like right here, I need to be done. So this trade out for like $400 loss. Not buying, thinking the bounce is coming, right? And this can happen when I'm looking at the 5-minute setup with too much conviction, too much confidence, thinking, and the volume profile can be misleading at times in situations where we're extended, right? Even if we're still looking good on the 5-minute chart, it doesn't always mean that we can hold up. So stuff like this, avoidable. $1,400 could have been in my bank account if I was to just cut this trade right here. Maybe I would just lost 400. And then to make matters worse, I'm out at the very bottom of the candlestick. Insane. And this is why it's good to cut it too, because look at this thing, right? Let's say I just kept buying. Oh, it's gonna come back up. Buying. Then this stock would have obliterated my account. Look at how low it went. Man. Oh man. Good old small caps, right? But okay, that'll do it. Shut it down. I'm shutting it down. My homework here is to review Friday and Thursday, and then I got 2 pieces of content that I gotta record today. Time. I'm giving myself just a 10-minute break here to get some water, and I'm gonna start fixing up my scripts, and it'll be time to dial in. No haircut this weekend, so I'll be throwing on the hat in the video. All right, gotta keep it clean. Stay safe, stay green. I'll catch you guys tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Yeah, take care. Study up if you haven't already for the weekend, and then if you're trading pre-market, 7 a.m. If not, 9 a.m. Depending on if it's a slow pre-market, I'll see you guys. Honestly, if it's a really good and also another thing I can do is probably shut down the stream and just come on for some pre-market analysis towards 9:15, and then shut it down again after that. That's probably something to do as well. Even if Marcelo might be busy, that could work. We make our money assuming that it's hot. If not, because if it's not hot, we're sticking to starter size. We're not like, trading the chop at size. So if it's slow, we'll just kind of be around because we'll be waiting to see if something hits the scans around the hour marks. If not, we'll take it slow into the open as well. If the open is choppy, then we shut it down early. Keep it tight, keep it small. And then the key really is just to make money on the hotter days. And when it's not hot, keep it tight, right? In the event where there's a hot day and you're wrong about the entries, there's a little bit more of a conversation to have there. But we should never be big red on a day where there's nothing, Like if you put out risk in what you thought for your setup, the best areas, and you kind of got murdered, I think that's way more acceptable than being massive red in a place where you just didn't see the entries for your setup. You didn't quite get the price action you know to trade, you love to trade, and so you kind of maybe force something. But yeah, take care, stay safe, stay green, and from Romania. You know what? We're gonna come to Romania one day, man. So that'll be interesting to go over there. I've seen some videos from the from the top G. Oh, that's funny. Stay safe, stay green. I'll catch you later. Top depths. All right.